Hi, and welcome to episode 8 of the Leading Adam podcast. Today, Adam and I dive into some societal norms surrounding leadership and how those impact the human experience. So stay tuned.
The Leading Adam podcast is hosted by me, Adam Binkerd. I've spent the last 10 years researching how a healthy human experience is the key to innovation and student retention in education. And now I'm taking to the mic to share what I've learned. Hear how I've defied the odds and transformed from a landscaper to a national expert in student success in less than 10 years. Not an educator? That's okay. Stay tuned for entertaining stories and practical takeaways about leading self, leading leaders, and leading culture. The Leading Adam podcast is co-hosted by Erika Crabtree, produced by Chris Spangle, and sponsored by 240 Solutions. Connect with us at 240solutions.com, and I hope you'll stay tuned because together we can change the world.
Hey, Adam, here we are, episode 8.
Yes, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. We made it halfway through first season.
Isn't it crazy?
That happened really fast.
Yeah, we talked about this for so long, and then all of a sudden we're halfway through a season.
That's right.
That's fun.
It's been a ride.
Yeah, it's been a ride.
Yeah.
So, yeah, halfway point, feeling good about it, and looking forward to more conversations. I'm really looking forward to the latter half of the season.
Yeah.
When we really start bringing in some guests and having some conversations with educators, people in the industry, and about all kinds of things. And we're gonna get into some stuff that it won't hit everybody,
Right.
but someone out there is going to need to hear it. And so I'm looking forward to the second half of the season.
Just variety. That'll be really fun. That'll be fun for us to stop hearing each other's voices for
exactly.
It'll be great.
Voice change matters. But I tell you what I was encouraged by is, last episode we had the opportunity, or we decided to take the opportunity to pause from talking about the human experience and really just speaking directly to educators and reminding them that they matter. It's so easy to get lost in that. And I not only enjoyed that episode and spending the time doing that, but the feedback we received over this last week, just educators responding and saying, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
I felt encouraged. I felt refreshed. Unfortunately, we can't be there to do that for them all the time,
right?
Which is why we're speaking to education leaders.
That's right.
Come on, get it together. This is a part of your job. Anyway, it was good to hear the response, right? The encouragement.
Very, very encouraging. And just takes our passion for education, and just as a privilege that we get to do this and get to talk about it. And it's exciting. I'm excited for this episode where we get to dive into just societal norms surrounding leadership, how those impact or can impact the human experience within an organization. And
often do.
Yeah.
Right. These are these subconscious things that have influenced us as leaders that we operate in almost ignorantly. I think most often the damage that we're doing to the human experience is out of ignorance. I think it's accidental diminishing. I don't believe there's a lot of malicious leaders out there looking to keep their followers under their thumb. It's more a fact of how do we educate leaders to understand there's an influence, and potentially you're diminishing belonging, vulnerability, and shared purpose just by being what you believe a leader should be, because that's what society says. Yeah,
it could be a little sometimes self-preservation, but also, trying to meet expectations that are spoken or unspoken.
Yeah,
probably a lot of times unspoken, that we put on, as leaders, based on those societal norms and those expectations that you feel like, as a leader, I have to be like this, or I'm supposed to be like this.
Right.
And that could,
I think sometimes they are spoken, even by people in our own team, going to be the more vocal people who would say, I expect this of you. And in some ways, we're maybe trying to fulfill that expectation without pausing to ask, does that behavior, does that mindset, does that attitude, does it enhance or diminish the human experience? Instead, we just seek to fulfill that expectation because at least someone on my team vocalized a need. Just because they vocalized it doesn't mean it's right. So it would be, I don't know if we'll stumble across any examples in this, but I think, to get us started, like, what do we mean by societal norms? I think the easiest way to get there is just by posing the question. And the question, I obviously have my own opinions. I've spent time, I've even built a tool to measure this in leaders that I use. Honestly, I use that when I'm working with leaders one-on-one because it gives me insight into, I need to help you tune this about the way you lead. So clearly I've got some opinions. But my question for you is really kind of a complete this sentence. A leader is what? Yeah,
and I will share my answers, but I'm also excited to hear maybe what you also think, because our perspectives are a little bit different, and especially just gender.
For sure.
Yeah, a leader is not emotionless completely, but very controlled in emotions. I think back to when I was really young in my career, fresh out of college, totally green. I worked retail, and I remember a boss sitting me down and explaining to me that if I didn't make someone cry from being strict, then I wasn't doing, like, he should have someone in his office crying.
Wow.
And just sort of that layer of you need to be really harsh, really emotionless. So I think, back in those early sort of setting those expectations, it was, really emotionless, having all of the answers. So more dictation, not really bringing people into it and, working collaboratively. It was more, I think, having that expectation of, okay, as a leader, I'm supposed to know everything and have all the answers. And execute it perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so in that, and I think the way to start this is the question, because no matter who I've sat across from and asked that question of, they answer it, and their answer 100% of the time is wrought with societal influence. Which is why we created the tool to measure it. Like, how do we measure the influence of society in your leadership so that we can coach up to improve the human experience of your team or organization, whatever the context. And so looking through some of the things that you've said is a leader is supposed to have the answers. A leader is supposed to be in control. And a leader is supposed to be commanding. Those are all personalities. I mean, it's really not leadership. Leadership is really attuned to different things. And so when we look at this, just this short list, right? That was a short description, and we've got 3 things that are societal norms. Let's walk through a little bit of, like, how does that influence the human experience? So let's just take the first one there, that a leader should have the answers. When you think about, we've been talking about belonging, vulnerability, and shared purpose through these episodes, but you and I have been talking about this for much longer than that. So when you think about those things, which one of those elements of the human experience, belonging, vulnerability, or shared purpose, do you think is most damaged by a leader who has the answers?
I think it shows, I would think that vulnerability would certainly be impacted.
Why do you say that?
I think because my assumption would be, or, from what I think would happen, how that would play out is that there would be a lack of curiosity. Also, there's, there's just no way I don't have all the answers for anything.
Sure.
It's just the reality. We're learning things, the market changes, the conditions change. So at no given time does anybody have all the answers. So we need to rely on people around us. And that requires a high degree of vulnerability to be able to say, let's learn through this together.
Yeah. Well, it's what way back, whatever episode that was, we talked about vulnerability produces vulnerability.
Absolutely.
All right. So yes, 100%. That is what I would say as well, is that when a leader is influenced by the idea that simply being a leader means I have the answers or I should have the answers.
Right.
It mitigates or it more than mitigates. It dissolves curiosity.
Sure.
And it dissolves a willingness to appear incompetent. So that sounds odd, right? And you think, boy, I don't know. I want my leader to be competent. But if a leader steps into a meeting willing to appear incompetent, what they're saying is, I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
But together we can.
Right.
So from a vulnerability standpoint, organizational vulnerability, if you're the leader and you have the answer, why should I speak? Right? Because remember what we were talking about is, at the end of the day, the human experience can be summed up into the question, do I matter? Well, if you have the answer, then I don't matter.
Right. You don't need me to, yeah.
You don't need me. Yeah, so that's just one example where we can see why societal norms are risky.
Yeah.
Not all of them are negatively influencing the human experience, but in this case, the ones that were top of mind for you, at least the first one, was.
Yeah.
So,
and I think what's important, I love the word willing. There's a willingness there to be, admit some incompetence. But I think an important element behind that is it's not an empty sort of incompetence where there's no plan or strategy behind that. As a leader, you're standing in front of your team and you're saying, I'm not sure, but I think I know how to get there, and I need your expertise in this area. I need your ideas. I need this skill from you. So there's still, there's still a strategy or a plan behind that.
Yeah, I think
as a word, just as an encouragement that when you are being vulnerable in that way, you're a leader. You've got it. You're getting your team together. You can do this, Yeah,
it's the difference. If a leader comes to the team meeting and sits down and plops down, looks a hot mess and says, "What are we doing?"
Right.
That's the wrong kind of incompetence. Like, no, you need to find a different job.
Yeah.
But when a leader comes and says, okay, here's where we're trying to go. How do we get there? I haven't, another way to say that is, I haven't sat in your seat. What do you see that I can't? And it's not, what do you see that I don't? Right? There's a difference in those words.
Right.
Don't implies that I could, but I don't see it. Can't, what do you see that I cannot?
Right.
Says, I will never be able to see from your perspective. Therefore, I need you.
Yeah.
You're all along the way as we're coaching through this with leaders, as I spend time one-on-one with leaders, I'm always trying to get them to answer the question that they're not asking. Do I matter? Yes, you do. And here's the way that you can start to attune to that. And, at first, leaders are overwhelmed by that. Oh, my gosh, Adam, I'm going to start governing. Do I say anyone or someone else? Do I say can't or don't? Don't overthink it.
Right.
But think it at all. That's kind of the encouragement.
Yeah.
So you started down a path when we got going here about the idea that your experience with leaders and as a leader is different than mine for a reason that I will never be able to understand fully because we are opposite gender.
Right.
I'm curious what you want to say about that because I know that it is much different, and it is something that I have found myself being acutely attuned to when I lead the female gender.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me because I am 6'2", 250 pounds. I speak with command, like whether I want to or not. It's how it happens. And so I'm always trying to figure out what's on the other side. Like, how do I account for what you might be experiencing or feeling as a female?
Yeah, I think, and I can only speak from my perspective. You know, I'm 5'4", 5'4" inches. I'm on the smaller end. You know, I only take up so much space. So I think sometimes there is that sort of limitation. Just, you know, most of the time I found that, you know, there's that kind of those types of comparisons. I think in terms of personality or how I approach different situations, I think, you know, by and large, I think women are maybe better at communicating emotions. And so when we talk about things like vulnerability and while those, you know, can be challenging and things I need to be aware of as well, tapping into those emotions is a lot easier for me, I think, than some men. And even I think back to, you know, sales trainings and things, and a lot of what motivated me early on to be, to get into more leadership roles and to take on a leadership position, particularly in admissions and front roles like that, is because I saw, you know, a lot of sales coaching and things like that were very sort of sports, you know, men who had done football with the big football rings. And there's a type of personality type that does really well in that type of a
more masculine,
and how they approach and speak. And for me, it's so much more, it was always so much more relational. And thankfully, you know, admissions or a lot of sales, consultative sales type roles, you know, are very relational. But I think that was, you know, kind of just a different approach. I can't be you any more than you can be me.
Right.
So, you know, when we step into a room, it's going to look and feel different.
Yeah.
And so I have to relate to people in front of me in a different way than you get to relate to them. And I think sometimes with more traditional forms of leadership, that sort of male brand of leadership, where you can take up more space and your voice is more commanding, those have, you know, been rewarded over time. And so just having to adapt and work around that and find my way, my brand, my style of being a leader, and has been not a challenge, but just something to be aware of and work with.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Like the word challenge is not the right word.
Right.
But there is a bit of an exploration in it, right? Because you
in a translation.
Right, because you're up against, as you are becoming a leader as a female, as you're becoming a leader, you're up against those same norms, except for layered on top of that. Traditionally in our minds, if you say leader, most people picture a man.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, but that's the reality that you're working in and that I'm working from.
Yeah. And some traits that men are rewarded for, being commanding, being, you know, maybe a little bit more assertive, those are negative traits.
For sure.
From a female.
Yeah.
And so you have to sort of balance that and be maybe not softer, but recognize that if you come off or say things in the exact same way, that it'll come off differently and be interpreted differently.
Yeah. I mean, we all know that what is asserted to a male as confidence is asserted to a female as a B.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And to be honest, some people wear it and they earn it. Mm-hmm. And the same is true for men, right? It goes from confidence to arrogance.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, the challenges, because those societal norms, that's a big societal norm just in the sense of gender alone.
Yeah.
Just that. We're not even talking about ethnicity. We're just talking about gender, which divides us kind of right down the middle.
Yeah.
But despite that, when we started this conversation, what we're saying is that focusing on the human experience is an element in which you can count on consistency,
right,
and effectiveness that transcends gender, socioeconomic status, ethnicity, geography. It transcends all those things because we're all human.
Right.
So when we think about societal influences and how they may be accidentally diminishing our human experience, what we have to do is take those societal norms and go, okay, which ones are gender neutral? Right. And now we're getting to something that, okay, you can apply, I can apply. And I don't mean that to take away from, there is a message to leaders, female leaders, trying to become in their own.
Right.
How does that look? To lead more comfortable with empathy and being emotionally centered versus a guy who's emotionally detached often. Like, those are real things, and those need to be explored and discussed. But I think for this episode and just talking about societal norms, how do we talk about the ones that are right there in the middle? They're true for you, they're true for me, because they're human. So when we put it in that spot and we go, okay, these are the ones that are human, let's go back to where we started. You had 3 things. We talked about leaders had the answer. That's a societal norm that is just as much of a potential to wreck the human experience from you as a female as it is for me as a male. Right. But let's talk about the other, that you talked a little bit about, that leaders should be in control. And I think as you were talking about that, I think it fits well with the emotion side of it. I think in a lot of ways the societal norm is that leaders they're either going to be bombastic or they're going to be dead inside. Right. They're emotionless. We know that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to discern that a bombastic leader is probably wrecking the human experience. Right. Psychological safety does not exist in that kind of leadership environment. Right. But it also doesn't exist in the leader that's emotionless. So, you talked a little bit about as a female leader, you're probably more comfortable leading with an emotion center, and I don't disagree with you at all. I think that's probably largely true. But let's talk about that a little bit, and let's connect it to the human experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and even though I say I do feel more, probably as a female, more in tune with my emotions, I'm okay to talk about it. There is still that pressure as a leader, like, I don't really want them to know. Right? Some of that. But I know when you look out over, the team, and everybody has emotions about something, right? About the situation that's going on, or so I think that as a leader, it's important to acknowledge that.
What do you think? What is the risk? Like, what is it that keeps us? Because you're right. I mean, as a man, first let me say to the men that are listening, the challenge we're up against is that we categorize emotions in 2 ways. We're either happy or pissed off. And the problem with that is neither one of those are emotions. They're categories for emotions. But because we're men, I'm angry. When in fact, I might be hurt.
Yeah.
because of something someone said, but or disappointed,
Yeah.
right? And I know that is a human thing. You can be hurt and disappointed, and so can I. But why might I be reluctant as a leader to say, "You hurt my feelings"?
Yeah.
Why do you think?
It could be vocabulary, not having the proper vocabulary within specifically that context,
Right.
to be able to recognize that it's a hurt feeling. It involves a little bit of confrontation. And that's something that some of us are more or less uncomfortable. It can be very uncomfortable. But yeah, I think that, but it's important to have those types of conversations. It's important to recognize those nuanced emotions. And yeah, I think that just the simple example that you just gave, it probably takes a little bit of reflection and a breath.
Yeah.
To be able to say, okay, I feel angry right now, but it's because my feelings were hurt. And now I need to have a conversation with this person and just a human conversation.
Right.
We work through it. And that communication and those relationships that are built can solve so many different, different types of problems,
I as from a man's perspective, I don't want to say that because I'm afraid you'll think I'm weak.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I would think similarly is if you share it as a female, let's say you've got a male colleague, it confirms that you're weak.
Yeah.
Right. And the reality is that's not weak at all.
No.
Because it's vulnerable, which we already know is courage.
Yeah.
If we can start to shift the way we see that, we invite people to be human with us. And, that's like gotta be up there in the top 3 steps is how do you improve the human experience? Be human.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple, but I'm thinking about shared purpose. Maybe let's connect it to one more.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking, when you go back to leaders are in control, leaders have the answers, you stay in that category, what you are doing is making yourself, in a lot of ways, the holder of the purpose. You're the fulfillment of the thing that achieves the purpose. And one of the things that I hate about leading and leading effectively, and I've had some success as a leader in my life, the one thing that I hate is that I'm the one who gets the credit. I personally hate it. I personally take every opportunity to vocalize the names of those people doing things. And that's a commitment on my part to make sure their voices and their names are heard in a room full of opportunity, so to speak. But if I am influenced by I'm supposed to have answers and I'm supposed to be the one in control, then I'm the keeper of purpose while you're just a cog in the fulfillment of that purpose.
Yeah. So you connected it to shared purpose, and I was connecting it with belonging. So as a leader, if you're the one holding on to the emotions, all the answers, etc., and not allowing those in the team to be able to speak into that, to really tap into the skills and the strengths of a team, there's no sense of community. There's no sense of a future. As a teammate, if you're don't feel like you matter, your voice isn't heard, your ideas don't matter, your skill set doesn't matter, I don't think I have a future with the company or with the institution.
Because I might not be necessary.
I'm not necessary. I'm not needed.
Yeah. Therefore, I don't belong.
Yeah.
See, that's why, in a shameless plug for 240 Solutions, and then let's get to our challenge. That's why we created a tool. I'm a data guy. I want to be able to quantify something that feels so philosophical or esoteric. Like, how do you get your arms around this? Well, you measure it by asking a series of questions that help me identify through the data where a leader is mostly influenced in these areas. And then all we got to do is take 5 steps. They're really simple things. And before you know it, they're leading a human experience intentionally instead of accidentally winning or accidentally diminishing. It takes the guesswork out of it. So let's challenge. And the challenge is, it's going to be a bit unique. This is not normal for most people, but it's normal for us. What we want to do is we want to challenge you to invest in yourself. And what I mean by that is hire a coach. I think the best way that you as a leader can grow is to find an objective party who's being paid to challenge you in your thinking and challenge you in your attitude and challenge you in your behaviors. And so to do that, of course, you could go to 240solutions.com and you can reach out to us, and I personally would walk that journey with you. That is an option. But we have a couple other good options, Erika, that I would like to put out there just to give them a shout. These companies can be found on LinkedIn. They are individuals that I interact with on a regular basis that I would highly recommend. And so I'll throw out the first one if you want to do the next two.
Sure.
I would recommend Legacy C3. You can look them up on LinkedIn and find them and reach out to them for some direct and personal coaching down this path. Highly recommended. So we got 2 more.
Yeah, I would also include with it that AAA Solutions, as well as Binkerd and Company, also excellent options to invest in.
Yeah. So no, for us, yes, we've got a specific lane and we've got a flavor to what we do, but coaching is coaching. When it comes to leadership, they'll be able to hear those things. And we encourage you to take a step and invest in yourself. Don't guess anymore. Just invest and see where you can grow. So with that, episode 8.
It's a wrap. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us here at the Leading Adam podcast. We hope you found inspiration and hope to see you again next time. Leave us a comment on YouTube, or if you have an idea for a future episode, let us know that too. You can connect with us at 240solutions.com. Thanks, and we hope to see you again next time.